Welcome into Why So Sidious, a Nerd podcast. It's me and Dave here. We're going to do a Superman comic book review. This is Mark Waid's Birthright. This is a 2003 comic. It is a graphic novel, which means it's not a part of a larger series at all. Mark Waid writing, Lionel Francis Yu on art, in honor of the Superman movie. Yeah, and we'll get into some DCU talk after we tell you that we're at Why So Sidious Pod. So go ahead and give us a follow wherever it is, YouTube, TikTok, Spotify, Instagram, Twitter. Give us a follow. We got a lot of content up that you might not really see on this. Actually, you kind of get all of it on Spotify, but you get the clips over there, some videos. So check it out. Our last week in Geek, by the way, we had some technical difficulties, so we haven't been covering nerd news. We had an episode that didn't drop. We might be able to stitch something together, we'll see, but that's why there's been a little bit of a lapse in coverage. Otherwise, yes, let's get into this comic. So this is an origin for Superman, a modern retelling of his origin. You see that early on when Kal gets sent off by his parents after Krypton is being destroyed. But then we rush right into Clark as a reporter. He's in Africa. He's moved away from Kansas, moved away from home. So we skip through the origin. That's fine. And then we get into what I think is a very different take, I mean, you really don't expect to go to Africa as a reporter, as Clark with a reporter in a story, really. So that's fine. Overall thoughts of this comic, Dave? How'd you feel about it?
Overall thoughts. It wasn't too bad. I wasn't crazy about it. It was a well-written origin story. I'll say that, I thought it was a pretty solid as far as origin stories go. It was fine. It did its job. It did what it needed to do. I kind of knew some of the aspects of the story, not all of it. So I'm not sure if he branched out on some different changes here to the canon origin story or not. But it's not that it was hard to read, but I just kind of felt somewhat bored for a decent amount of it. The story as a whole didn't do a whole lot for me. Again, it wasn't bad. It just didn't really stand out to me. Lex is a very much over-the-top comic book villain, and his dialogue gets a little goofy for me sometimes there. I know that's kind of his character. He over-explains and all that. But I think this run here kind of reinforced my overall opinion of Superman growing up as a kid as I read this story. That I kind of God, I said that in such a horrible way. Reading this reminded me of how I felt about Superman growing up as a kid, because I think one of the flaws for me is most situations Superman can just show up and take a bunch of bullets and save everybody, unless there's kryptonite, and then he's got to figure a way to disable the kryptonite and then continue to be overpowered. It's not the most creative writing as far as stopping situations goes. It has its moments for sure. I really love some aspects of the skills we learned about him, which I'll get into. But overall, for the most part, it didn't feel mind-blowing watching him save the day. So I didn't mind reading the run. I enjoyed a decent amount of stuff, but I'm probably not going to be rereading it.
Yeah, same. I totally get it. It is kind of boring, and it kind of goes against, online, the community really raves about this one. I mean, online just, it's like one of the best Superman stories, and I have this consistent situation where the best Superman stories to the online community are not the best Superman stories to me. It's like All-Star Superman. Really don't enjoy it that much, but people online say it's just the best thing ever. This one is not quite so dramatic for me. I do enjoy this one a lot. I like a lot of how, it's kind of a slow story, but Mark Waid's strength is telling a story that, I mean, on the surface, this is a basic superhero origin story versus a villain, but I think Waid does make it fun and special in its own ways. Clark going to Africa, the reporting thing was weird. Didn't the good guy tribal leader die during that? I mean, he was in the middle of this conflict, and then what did Superman do to stop? Did he just leave?
Yeah, the guy was on the steps, giving his speech, and then his sister ran up and was like, our village is being wiped out right now. They're burning people, they're killing everybody. And so he had to decide whether to protect the guy or stop the village. And when he went to stop the village, whoever sent in their order to stab the guy, and he got killed.
Yeah, and then he just left because, then the good guys lost their leader. I feel like they're screwed. I don't know, He just leave them in a bunch of chaos. So, regardless of how that goes, I feel like that was an interesting take. Riding home to mom felt I guess, a little relatable. Leaving home to go to college. I don't know, not really, but I do like how she was deducing all the Kryptonian heritage and culture. I thought that was cool. It's like her and Lex were the people in the books explaining Kryptonian culture to us because of their research. Very different types of research, but
I liked that, and I liked the fact that she started off going on the internet to learn about Kryptonians, and then she got sucked into the whole wormhole of UFO internet culture out there, and so she's like one of the UFO conspiracy theorists online now, just because it started from her Kryptonian interest. But yeah, I like how they explain that. How, I mean, it gave Luthor that upper hand, right? Because he didn't even know his name was Cal at this point. Clark didn't even know his heritage, and Luthor's here explaining it to him and showing him these things, and he sees his parents for the first time, and it's all from Luthor revealing this and his mom. So that was a unique way of telling that, the exposition side of things.
Yeah. And then Lois Lane and Jimmy Olsen. Well, so yeah, we know Lois Lane, but Jimmy Olsen's a name I heard a lot about, and he was not in. Well, he was probably in Man of Steel, but he didn't really stand out at all. Was he the guy with
they
the
skipped him?
Did they not do Jimmy Olsen at all?
So in Man of Steel, he wasn't. They skipped him, and then they did some weird variation of him in Batman vs Superman. But I don't think they even said Jimmy Olsen at any point.
I was always curious about this character because like TikTok online was really excited about the casting, and I guess I liked getting a look into who he was. I didn't know what to expect, but you learn right off the bat he's kind of weak and vulnerable, which is right there in contrast to Lois Lane, who defends him pretty like savagely. I mean, not like physically, but I liked getting to know who the hell this guy is, so I know what to expect for the movie. And Lois and Jimmy are huge characters in Superman lore. So, do you feel? Did you know anything about Jimmy Olsen before? I'm sure Lois Lane, yes, but like, are you more comfortable going into this movie knowing who this random? Because you probably heard the name a lot before, but not knowing who it was a little bit.
I've heard Jimmy Olsen. I've seen him in certain things. I know he's just like you said, the nerdy ginger photographer at the Daily Planet that Lois constantly has following her around. Honestly, I don't have a lot of interest in the Jimmy Olsen thing. I mean, if anybody's gonna put some depth into that character and maybe make me feel emotional or invested in him, it could be James Gunn. But outside of that, it's not really a character I'm too interested in. But I like Lois Lane. I like her as a character. I liked her in this issue. Amy Adams was okay as her in Man of Steel. I have a feeling I'm gonna like this new Lois Lane. What's her name? Rachel Brosnan. Is that what it is? Brosnahan. I think I'm gonna like her interpretation of Lois Lane. Wasn't crazy about Lois and Superman and Lois, so I think half the time Lois Lane's obnoxious, half the time Lois Lane's a badass. So I think we're going to get a good version that I really like in this new Superman interpretation. But I liked her in this run.
Yeah. And I was interested in Jimmy. I was just curious. I'm like, who the hell is this guy? Why are people excited about the casting? And then it turns out he's just that character. But it's cool, whatever. Superman, like, it reminds me of Spider-Man. He gives him a photo of himself, gives him a little boost employment-wise, respect-wise in the Daily Planet. Not the Bugle, Daily Planet. But anyway, that leads us to a drone attack in the city. So Superman has come home from Africa, and I forgot how his mom made him a costume or something like that. And then, they do the whole thing and the glasses and like, this is really how you're going to hide, whatever. But he gets a job at the Daily Planet, meets these people that we just talked about, and then the drones attack. And these are like Lex drones. Forgot what the purpose is there, but the coolest part about that was when he grabbed the radio or receiver or whatever it was, and then from that he could trace the signal because his eyesight is so crazy. It's like electromagnetic radiation or something he could trace directly back to Lex Luthor's tower. So I loved their first meeting there. It was like, even though Superman could squash him like a bug, they're completely opposite in physical stature, but it was still like the unstoppable object meeting the immovable force or vice versa, whatever. Mm-hmm. Because Lex has, mastered the human side of things, he knows he's not breaking any laws that people can see, and Superman comes in there, and he certainly can't prove anything, and he's not going to just beat his ass because he's Superman, so it's like, Superman's not going to do anything, he can't do anything, and Lex obviously can't do anything either, it's just Superman. So I did like that meeting right there, and that kind of starts, you can kind of start to see Lex's motivation there. He kind of hates that he's kind of helpless against this man, and Lex has worked so hard his whole life to perfect like humanity and their potential, and then this alien shows up and he's already beaten that. So I think they did a good job there too. But how did you feel about the first meeting there?
Yeah, so I love that. And so I like that aspect, like you just said. That was one of my favorite parts learning about Superman in this, was the fact that he was able to trace that signal back to Lex because he could literally see the transmission. And he mentioned that in the second issue, actually, when he comes home. He goes back to the farm and his dad's like, "Are you being careful? I hear those satellites are getting better and better." And he says he can see their transmissions and he just has to weave between them. So I had no idea Superman had that ability, but that's awesome. That's one of his cooler abilities I've ever heard of. So I don't know why, I really think that's an awesome ability to imagine. So I loved that. And yeah, I thought it did its job as far as Lex meeting Superman for the first time and seeing him get under his skin instantly. You can see where that's going. But yeah, as far as first encounters go, I thought it was pretty good. Oh, I wanted to mention, so I texted you when we first started reading this, and I said it's got a Man of Steel feel to it in the first issue. And you said, yeah, I think you're not going to think that once you get further into it. It's just kind of the first Krypton origin portion. Yes, you were absolutely right. It did not feel like Man of Steel after that going forward. But I did notice one thing. There's a quote in issue 3, and his mom says, "Are we alone in the universe? It's a question that has been asked since time began, and you're the answer." It's an exact quote from Man of Steel. So I don't know which one came first. I think this came a year before Man of Steel was released.
2003 for this comic. Shit,
oh my god, I thought it was 2012.
Oh, yeah.
Because I think Man of Steel is 2013. Yeah, it was. Okay. Well, so obviously Man of Steel took that quote from this. I thought it was 2012. The art makes way more sense now that it was 2002. Okay.
Yeah, let's touch on the art. I'm really mixed on the art. I feel like his Francis Yu's faces look kind of tweaky, like the people's eyes look like they're tweaking out or they didn't get enough sleep, like all the time. And it kind of throws me off. I liked how he drew a lot of Superman, though, when he just did like these, he used shadows really well, like blackening parts of Superman's face or body when the eyes are still red.
Yeah.
So like they did like a dark Superman aesthetically in a lighter kind of story. A hit or miss for the art.
Yeah, it was fine. For the most part, I liked it. It didn't take me out of the story by any means, but it's hilarious. I literally put in the notes, it feels more early 2000s than 2013, but it's not bad. Yeah, well, it was early 2000s, so I guess that makes sense. But yeah, it was okay. It didn't take away from the quality of the story or anything, but it wasn't like mime.
Yeah. One interesting thing they did was Lex made a fortune because he was studying kryptonite or glancing into the universe with the power of the kryptonite. Like that's where he got all his ideas, and that's how he made his riches. That was pretty interesting.
Yeah. Very interesting. There's a lot of they did a good job at explaining Lex's crazy backgrounds, and I like during that first encounter, Lex thinks Superman has some insane tech like that's made. I think he asked him if it was made by Star Labs or Core Technologies or something. He's asking him how he's able to, anti-gravity and everything, and so I thought that was an interesting start to it.
Yeah, Lex is probably my favorite part of this. I really like all of his backstory, learning about Krypton. He deduced that Superman was an alien, not that Clark was Superman yet. But then, the scene with him in high school when he starts telling everybody's secrets, I thought was really funny.
Yeah.
I thought him making the deal with the football coach was ridiculous. I kind of hate when, some people writing comics might think they know sports, and I just don't really buy into Lex just making an algorithm for an high school football game. So that's kind of annoying.
Why would the coach go into the bleachers if he's up 48-0 in the third quarter? We're up 48-0. I got to run to Lex to see what we're doing for the fourth quarter. He'd probably be okay with 48-0, but yeah, that totally felt like, I don't think you've been involved in sports.
Yeah,
that's fine.
So, and he was also a genius with everything except Clark. His device for detecting aliens detected Clark as an alien, so it worked. But since he assumes that Clark is a human, he thought the machine was broken, so he just loses his shit. I think he breaks it, and it's like he's so dumb when it comes to Clark, but he's a genius everywhere else. But then again, his dad said something interesting about that, and he was like, well, Lex thinks he's the best thing that came out of Smallville, and he's literally never gonna assume. So they kind of balance that out, but still, this genius is just being an idiot right in front of. Superman's right in front of you, and you're being pretty much the dumbest you are in this book. Yeah, only right in front of Clark.
But they did do a pretty good job at writing that, even when they were.
It was fun.
Getting him to slouch his shoulders and put the glasses on, and Clark's pointing out this is still ridiculous. She's like, but in the day-to-day thing, people are not gonna notice. Unless obviously Lois Lane, people you're seeing constantly, and then who are running into Superman. But for the most part, it was like, all right, I kind of buy that explanation. I don't have too much of a problem with the secret identity thing there. But another thing about Lex, I really thought was awesome is how he determined he like reverse engineered Superman's powers to find the planet he was from that would be able to be created from that. Like his heat vision and other stuff, he literally reverse engineered it. It was like, well, it's got to be a planet that has a red sun with this and this. Like it was super interesting, obviously incredibly intelligent, but I did like that aspect. It's a creative part of the story.
Yeah, and then Lex freaking stages an alien attack. I thought that was pretty cool. I thought they didn't really nail it as far as climaxes go. But that got me excited. That got me pumped for a climax. I thought that also was kind of give me some Man of Steel vibes. Just aliens. I mean, I guess aliens coming to invade Earth is like every other movie, but Krypton showing up so yeah, I think Lex is just my favorite part of this. That's about it. Pa Kent also, because I found that quote, and he also said a bunch of other cool things to Superman. Like he said, if you still want to take responsibility for him, because Clark is all depressed about it, he's like, then stop him before hurting more people, before more people get hurt. Sorry. And then Clark goes and just hope he doesn't see through my disguise. And that's when he says, he's not looking. Remember, nothing good will ever come out of this hick town but Lex Luthor is what he said. So even if he wanted to link Superman to Smallville, his ego wouldn't allow it. That's pretty good. That's pretty good. Pa Kent and Ma Kent are supposed to. They should, in James Gunn's movie, drop some heavy lines, like at least one each, that are heartfelt, motivating something. Those are some of the better parents in comics. They didn't. I think they did pretty good in this comic too. Actually, I was going to say they didn't shine here, but they did solid here. I think as far as parents in comics go, they're up there as some of the best.
Yeah, I like them in this. Like you said, I like the instant messaging going back and forth, how they're kind of talking about stuff and following along with the attack in Metropolis. I liked Kevin Costner and Diane Keaton's portrayal of them in Man of Steel 2. I really like them. They both had some really solid lines and scenes too, even though Kevin Costner's death was a little goofy in that. But that's not his fault. Yeah, no, I think they're a solid. Well, I don't know that we have two notable actors who are playing them in this new movie, but yeah, I expect to get a few gems, emotional scenes out of that one, especially with James Gunn writing it.
Yeah. Okay, so do you have any other thoughts on this comic before we get into the DCU? I'd say for me overall, I liked it. I liked getting a look into a different take into Superman's origin. I liked Lex Luthor. I did just like getting a taste of who the hell Jimmy Olsen was. We didn't get a lot of Perry White. Got a lot of it. He was a huge dick compared to like your Fishburne guy and Batman vs Superman in this. Huge dick. So I wonder what way they're going to go with that. I don't know if he's supposed to be a huge dick or if he was just extra nice in the Snyderverse, even though he's a little bit of a dick, but more lighthearted. Anyway, those were the strengths. I think as usual with Waid, Kingdom Come, I think, is his absolute best work. It's just good. But like most of the time, Waid does pretty lighthearted stuff. Nothing too intense, deep, dark, but it's just kind of interesting storytelling. It's pretty consistent with his writing.
Straight up.
Yeah, so I'll give it this is in the 7.5 range for me, 7.4.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, last thoughts on the story itself. I thought it did a good job at starting the Superman mythos of hope and everything. You know, Lois has that line to him. It isn't fear that drives people, and she tells him to prove that to the people of Metropolis. So totally polar opposite of the Batman ethos there. So I thought it did a good job at kind of kickstarting that hope feel to Superman. It did a really good job at explaining and showing how much Lex Luthor truly does just despise everything that Superman is. We got an explanation for it. We saw it in person and saw him being driven crazy by it. So I think they did a good job with that. The invasion, I thought it was kind of weird that the majority of the invasion was Lex just using the kryptonite as a hologram machine, kind of like Mysterio does in Far From Home. Like you find out that a lot of that stuff was just hologram. I didn't know kryptonite was able to create holograms. Maybe that's just something I'm not aware of, and that's very possible. But that aspect was a little weird to me. But overall, I didn't mind the ending, and I really loved the last few panels. I thought that was honestly one of the best parts of the 12 issues. And it was that really cool bit at the end where Superman is actually able to send a message back in time to his parents saying, I made it. And they see awesome. It through this thing that Lex created that goes back into time into other dimensions, and he was able to say, I made it, and they saw that, they got that closure and that fulfillment right before their death. So I thought that was a really cool moment. One of my favorites for sure, the issues.
Agreed. That was awesome. All right.
Sorry, yeah, I didn't give a
You're
rating. I just said all that. So as far as ratings go, probably a 7.1 at the highest for me. It's okay. Just probably won't be reading it again.
For sure. Okay, yeah, this is time to get into the DCU, and we'll transition easy from this comic review. So, do you see anything from this comic that might, what might they take from this? I don't know. We hear that All-Star Superman's going to play a role. He did drop the image of Kingdom Come. He said that For All Seasons is going to play I don't know, but what do you see from this playing over?
It's hard. Speaking of, by the way, I'm still excited to read Kingdom Come. I feel like I'm actually going to really like that more. I think as a Superman fan that I'm not, I think I need stuff that's different. And that's probably why everybody loves these classic superheroes or Superman stories like All-Star Superman and this. And since I don't really like the character, I probably wouldn't like All-Star Superman either, but I'm excited for Kingdom Come. Anyways, sorry, good lord, sputtering. I think Lex's whole demeanor and his backstory and reasoning for hating Superman, I think is going to be pretty similar. I think we may get some like exact quotes. Like I was reading some of these panels in the story and I could picture Nicholas Holt's character saying it on screen. So I think we're going to get a decent amount of that. A lot of it, the Lois Lane and Clark stuff, I could picture being on screen too. So I don't think we're going to get Lex exposing Krypton or anything like that. I don't think we're going to get glimpses into Krypton and the soldiers like we do in this. I don't know. I don't think there's going to be any major plot points pulled from this that we see in the movie. But as far as the whole Lex's motivations and Lois and Clark go, I think it's going to be very similar. But I guess that's a pretty obvious answer.
No, I'm with you. There's not even any like big cinematic moments or anything that was like, oh, I need to see that on the big screen. So yeah, it didn't scream any of that to me.
Yeah.
In general, I think it's just a good look into who the characters of the Superman world are.
Straight up.